We all know Murphy's Law. If something can go wrong, it will. Most of us also know Murphy's corollary. No good deed will go unpunished. There are people who actually think Murphy's an optimist. At the final episode of Seinfeld, I got a kick out of when they think the plane is going down, and George Costanza, they're at this point where he thinks he's probably going to get killed. He just lets out with this, "I knew God would never let me be successful." What's so funny about it is that probably most of us have experienced that kind of a feeling before. Not necessarily the plane going down, but that sense that God would never let anything go right for me. We use expressions like the other shoe's gonna drop. And how many times, I'm not asking you to tell me, but think, how many times in your own lives have you said to yourself when something doesn't go right, "Well, I figured that was coming"? It's such a common sense. Doubt on the part of the earliest Christians happened, and all four Gospels deal with it. The Gospel of Mark probably originally ended in verse 8 of chapter 16 with the women running away. That's probably the original ending of the text. In the Gospel of Matthew, they go out to Galilee, and the text tells you they worship him, but they doubt it. And it's Jesus himself who has to get them over that sense of doubt. Here we have the Gospel of Luke, and we see how when the women come to the other disciples, what's their reaction? It seemed like nonsense. But probably the quintessential sense of doubt is in the Gospel of John, and we'll be hearing this Gospel passage soon enough, the famous Doubting Thomas. We hear it in translation. The translation's not bad when it says, "Unless I put my finger into the prints of the nails in his hands and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." Good enough translation. But I will tell you this, that I think the Greek is a lot more powerful than that. The term, when he said that is translated put, is actually bala. Normally that means to throw something or to cast something. I think it would actually be better to translate it, "Unless I shove my fingers into the holes in his hands and shove my hand into his side." And then it's a double negative with indicative. I will never believe. That's very powerful. The earliest Christians dealt with doubt. Tonight, however, demands from us a reevaluation of that sense. It's so easy to believe bad things. It's hard to believe something good. And tonight in this celebration, we are challenged to reevaluate that stance. Our celebration tonight, our readings that take us through salvation history, tell us that not only good but wondrous things can and have happened and will continue to happen. Our celebration tonight invites us to put aside that easy doubt, to put aside confusion, to live instead in hope and in joy. When I was in theology, my third year, I used to work in this parish down in the Loop in Chicago. So I was doing my master's degree at Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. St. Peter's in the Loop is an interesting place. If you're there on a weekend, nobody's there because nobody lives there. It's downtown. But during the weekdays, it is incredible how many people come through those doors. On Ash Wednesday, the pastor gave out these little clickers, these little counters, to figure out how many people would come in because he was curious. When we tabulated them at the end of the evening, 75,000 people came through those doors for ashes. Why? There's something about Lent that speaks to us. We know when we've messed up. Tonight, however, is reminding us that God cares and loves for us nevertheless. That no matter what obstacles we place in the way, as the Exalted said, he has broken the chains of death. Why not let Easter speak to us just as easily as Lent seems to do? It is not a coincidence. We have just finished 40 days of preparation. As we come to this feast, is the heightened pinnacle of our faith. The church gives us not 40 days to sit back and celebrate, but rather 50. Numerically speaking, the church is trying to give us a message. It's easy to believe bad things. But we are challenged this evening to recognize wondrous things and to recognize that God continues to do the wondrous for us. Let us not forget that, and let us make that alleluia that I massacred a little while ago instead really sing out to us, really speak to us. Let us truly, with full heart, celebrate.